Welcome to our first studio session for exceptional extensions. In this series, we're going to try to really attack the idea of teaching extensions and learning extensions from different angles that we might not always address. And I feel like these different angles that we're going to come at for the 4 focuses of extensions will really broaden how we're able to do our extensions and how powerful they are. So our first focus is going to be expansion. Now, when we talk extensions in this series specifically, we're not just talking about gorgeous lines in all seconde or beautiful arabesque lines or great leaps. We're going to be talking about extensions even down to the nitty-gritty of lengthening the back of the knee of the supporting leg, finding extension in our arms so that our shoulders aren't crunched up to our ears, right? Closing off that neck. Extension in our spine so our body looks longer. So when we talk extension today, with expansion being our focus, we are going to hone in on the joints, which means that we're going to try to find as much space in the joints as we possibly can so that when we're dancing, our body looks longer than it normally would. It feels like it has more energy than it normally does, right? So talking about the joints, the first thing we want to jump into is the idea of hyperextension. Now, I'm going to show you on my arms because I think sometimes with hyperextension in the legs, we think, oh, if the legs hyperextend, our arabesque looks longer, or this happens or that happens. But really, hyperextension is a bend in the opposite direction. So if you're in a plie and you're like, oh, my legs aren't straight, if you pull into a hyperextension, your legs go past the straight point and into a bend in the opposite direction, which brings a lot of not only danger to the body, but also instability, right? And so those lines aren't as strong. Those lines are causing you potential damage later. And your technique cannot quite be as strong as it would if we were stopping in that straight position, full expansion in the joints versus a hyperextended pressure in the joint in the opposite direction. So with an arm, if I had a bent arm and I was going to straighten, I would lengthen here. But if I was going to hyperextend, that's going past the straight. So see how it looks bent again? It's just bent in the opposite direction. Now my joint again is taking a similar type of compression that it would in this position. So it's bent the joint, right? We're still trying to find space, but it is bending into that joint. It's lengthening as far as it can. And now it's pressing even farther. So it's putting pressure here. The same thing is happening to your knees when we hyperextend them. And even if we're thinking about an over hyperextension of the back, we want to think about the safety there and finding like the space in those joints, the lengthening and the power in the muscles. So jumping into our concept of expansion, our first focus, we're going to constantly be thinking of extension in the joints, lengthening of the joints, taking away that compression of the joint. So our first exercise, we're going to be laying on the floor. And I want us to think about, we're going to in different joints while we're down here. But laying on the floor first, we're going to think about expanding our legs. So taking our right leg, just relaxing the body into the floor. We're going to take a couple of deep breaths before the right leg activates, but take a nice deep breath in. And then releasing that breath. One more time. Deep breath in. And as you release, I just want all the weight into the floor. So see how my legs just kind of relax into the floor. My body just let the floor take all of my weight. I'm way more grounded now. Now we're going to bring our legs into a parallel position, still as relaxed as possible. That right leg, we're going to try to reach past the left leg, really thinking about taking the leg away from that hip joint, finding space in the hip joint, finding space and length in the knee joint, finding space in that foot, and relax. One more time on that right side, finding space, lengthening it past, space in the hip joint, space in the knee joint, space in the ankle joint to reach and relax. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the left side. So still staying relaxed, bringing the legs as parallel as possible, keeping that relaxation going. Just our emphasis is going to be that left leg. So thinking about the left leg reaching past the right leg, finding space in that hip joint, reaching even farther as you find space in the knee joint, even farther as you find space in that ankle joint. And relax. So we'll do that one more time with the legs. Here we go. Left leg, reaching farther out. See if you can put your hands there. Feel the space being made in the hip. Farther out in the knee, farther out in the foot, and relax. Feel how nice that feels, right? All that space in there. And now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to take it into a small huddle, right? So we're going to take our right leg, feeling the space of the hip, lengthening it out, space of the knee, space of the ankle, and now hover that expansion off the ground. Don't let the leg come back in like sometimes it wants to do, but have it hover, still staying as relaxed as possible, and lower back down. We're going to do that one time on the left side. Now you can take these more in the studio. We can take more time with our dancers. We are the dancer. We can take more time, right? We could do a few extra on each side until we're really understanding the concept. But for right now, we're just going to do one additional one on that left side. So taking that left, reaching it past the right, extension, and finding that in my hip. I'm finding that in my knee. I'm finding that in my ankle. I'm going to hover, still trying to reach, and lower it back down. Now this time, we're going to start with the right again, and we're going to reach. We're not going to hover quite well. So we're going to reach as relaxed as possible, reach. And when we find that space, we're going to start to rotate it. Finding that space, rotate it. Feel how even with our external rotation, we still have space in our head. And bring it back. Let it go. Our left side. Extend, extend, past the right, and rotate it, keeping that expansion, keeping the joints lengthening away, bringing it back parallel, and releasing. Now we're going to do the same thing with a little hover, right? So lengthen the right, lengthen, lengthen, rotate it out, keep that lengthening going, and hover. And relax, bring it back. Left side. You reach it away, away, away. You can see that leg getting longer than my opposite leg. Rotate it, turn out, keeping that expansion in the hip, expansion in the knee, and hover it up. And bring it back. Shake that out, finding that relaxation. Now, the same thing can happen with our arms, right? We won't do the full series, but relaxing those arms into the floor in our neutral position, reaching the right arm. Try to find length in that shoulder, lengthen that elbow, but not hyperextending, just reaching, and the wrist, and relax. We can do the same thing with the left. We'll just do one time on each side. Reaching, reaching, extending, finding that space, and relax. You can do the same thing with your spine, reaching your tailbone away from you here, reaching your spine long here, seeing how extended you can get in all your vertebrae. It doesn't feel like a lot of movement, it's more of an energetic movement here. And relax. And so forth. Doing that a couple of times. And the next thing I want to talk about when we're talking about expansive joint is finding really how much space you have in the joint before you or before your dancer begins their actual extension. So what I mean by that is a lot of times dancers, when they're doing their extension, they struggle to get the height, and they think it's because they have really tight hips or really tight joints. And so before we even start going into the extension, do this to see, okay, is it really the joints that are tight, or is there something else that we're dealing with? Now, the same thing that we did here with the hovers, you can also do on your stomach. So laying flat on your stomach and reaching, and that helps the dancer feel that extension in arabesque fly, right? So you can do it parallel to help activate the hamstrings and reach and find extension in the back. You can also do that turned out. So that'll help your dancer feel like the extension in the lower back, even as in the spine as they're going into that arabesque. Now, as we're going into more expansion, we're going to do kind of this test or kind of observation to even see where our dancers' joints are before they go into the extension. Because it might not be a tight hip thing, it might not be a tight joint thing, it might be a tight muscle. So finding whether it's a lack of space in their joints that's keeping them from having the extensions that they want, or whether it's something with the flexibility or the strength that's keeping them there. So this series is going to help us really dive into, okay, we don't have the extensions we want, or they're there, but they're not as strong as we want, and why is that? So this is the first kind of test to see where that could be coming from. As we're laying on our back, we're going to see where our hips are finding their space and their fluidity when our dancer's moving from one position to the other. It feels like it's getting stuck. So what we're going to do is we'll have our dancer relax that leg again, hand in the joint, make sure that everything stays as relaxed as possible. Now, when the dancer's muscles start to activate, that might actually feel like the joint's closing off, and that's more of a muscular thing. Right now, we're going to be relaxed. You can even see how much space they have, right? So are their quads tight? If so, they're gonna lose space here. See if we can just relax them into whatever position. This might also be a teacher kind of holding this dancer's leg and letting them relax into it and feeling where it goes. Now, as we draw the knee into the chest in a relaxed position, we can see where our space is in the joints when we're going to block, right? So like if your dancer's leg is maybe just coming here, their devant probably isn't going to be that high yet because they might be tight in the joints there, right? This might be something we need to think about more expansiveness in the joints, finding ways to help them loosen up their joints. But if your dancer in a relaxed position is bringing their leg here, then it's not an issue of space in the joints because that double would be it, right? So this is just, if they're struggling with double pain, their hips are here, their joints will allow them to go here, then it's something different. Same thing crossing the body, so keeping both hips flat. So my little panels are going to stay on the floor, and I'm going to think about drawing the leg across the body. Now, when the dancer's bringing the leg across the body, it's up here, and when they do the fan kick, the leg would probably be low, right? But if relaxed in the joint, the leg is up higher like that, how higher leg. Now, one thing I would recommend is not extending the structure because if we can do it with the soft leg, now we can see if it's a joint issue. If we extend the leg, other things can come into play like flexibility or muscles like tightening. But just having this here allows us to see, okay, where can that top of the leg go in the joints to get that? Now we're going to draw it through and we're going to bring it to all of seconde, right? So if a dancer brings it to all of seconde, and again, we can help them here. If they bring it to all of seconde and they are up here, your all of seconde will be more angled, right? It won't be ready to come back. But if they relax and that knee's coming back and they have the space in the hips, then we can even bring it out, bring it back, bring it out. Where would the space in the joints be for the, maybe their all-time turns, right? And then helping assist your dancer, or if your dancers are able to do it, just little leg circles. So this little leg circle is going to help us see, okay, full range of motion in that joint, how well our dancers doing, right? And then we'll reverse the circle. So let's do 3 in the opposite direction. And over. And this is all about observing and bringing out that curiosity, right? Bringing out the curiosity of what does our body want us to do right away of the drawing. Now, stretch that and let that go. We're going to try the other side. So, curiosity, feeling that state, drawing it up and relaxing into that hip. There. Now, devant. Where is our body going in devant? Do we have a lot of space here? Or relaxed, can the leg come pretty high up, right? How is the space in the joint for our dancer going devant? Now from here, we're going to cross it. Now remember, we want to stay as relaxed as possible. So usually I'm not like fully extending up this pointing leg and like stretching speed and trying to get, because the more we activate the muscles, the more we might grip in the hip, and then we don't really know how much space we have because the muscles are closing off that space a little bit. And that'll be in one of our other days. Look at it. Kind of it's right? Tossing it over, keeping the purple blue panel of the working leg on the floor and seeing how maybe there's more space on one side or the other side. Maybe a dancer can really cross over on one side but the other side. They're really struggling to get the leg cross body. Now take it, and we're going to take that same leg, we're going to open it up. Feeling if you want with the working leg hands, placing that on the purple green connector point of your apparel, if you have your apparel, and seeing, okay, is that tight, or do I have more space? How's that feeling? Is my muscle trying to grip, or am I really able to relax here? And then turn it out even more, just with relaxation now. No pressure. We're just observing what our leg wants to do, how much space we have in our joints, right? And these observations are no pressure, because the more we can learn about our body, the more we can access, right? So if we learn more about our body, we can access better extensions. We just have to know, okay, we might be holding us back. Now we're going to do our circle. So little circle, relaxation circles. If we want this to be assisted, get a partner or a teacher can move your leg for you. One more time. And then we're going to change our direction. And observe, like, what do our joints feel like as we're going through? We could be soft, right? And cross one more time. Good. Now, hug it in, rock and roll it up. Awesome. And so that's going to help us understand like the expansiveness of our hips. Now, one thing I want us to think about too is the expansiveness of our shoulders and our neck. So a lot of times dancers, you'll see them closing out their shoulders. You'll see them like the ears and the shoulders are starting to connect, or there's a lot of tension, right? And so one thing we can do there, I'm going to show you now. The quickest test to know about how our arms are shaped and being held is to find our neutrals. So standing neutral, just that means as you're relaxed, how do you like to stand, right? So teachers, have your dancers just stand. Hey, if you're in school and you're relaxed, how do your arms fall? How do your legs stand, right? And we can kind of start to see what our dancers want to do when they're standing. Now, every time I've done this in the classroom, and this is why I think it's kind of cool, every time I do this in the classroom, I have dancers, teachers, everyone basically standing like this, right? Doesn't this feel kind of like our neutral stance? Well, the neutral of the body, really, anatomical neutral of the body is having your hands facing forward. The reason why this is important, because this makes you feel very natural, right? Even though it is our anatomical neutral. The reason why this is important is I want to show you something special. When we are facing the side, look what happens to my shoulders when I turn my hands forward. See how they roll forward and down? And then if I turn my palm to the anatomical neutral, my shoulders naturally go back and down. They elongate, there's space, watching that from the front. You know? Then my shoulder goes in, back and down. Now, that's important because when we bring arms up, if our arms are in neutral and we bring them up, see how my shoulders tend to want to go. Now, if we tell our dancers to push their shoulders down, they're basically, I'm pushing so hard, but look how much tension there is and look how high they still are, right? Now we tell our dancers from there, okay, shoulders back and down, right? And so we're trying to get that. Before they ever lift their arms, think about having them stand in an anatomical neutral. And even if they're standing like, we're going to go across the floor or like we're not going to do that, right? Have them stand in anatomical neutral and just give them a thought to it, because as they draw up, look what naturally happens to the arms, right? The shoulders lengthen back and down, the neck is incredibly long, right? But if we did this again, right, here, expansive. And so this is another area where we want to think about the joints, because now we have the expansiveness in our spinal column, but also in our shoulders to really reach the arms and make them look longer, make our body feel longer. And that's going to go into more of our strength later to find that expansiveness now. So take these concepts. I know they're really fast, they're really brief. Take these concepts, and I want you to play around with them in the studio and then come back and find us next time for our focus of elongation. See you there.